This is our Motorsports Careers panel, and this is going to be a very unique panel indeed, because we've got a lot of brain power up here on the stage. First of all, again, we're staying in alphabetical order here. Andrew Craig on the end, the president of the Craig Company. Andrew's unique background in and out of motorsports makes him uniquely qualified to talk with us today about motorsports careers. He's been an advisor to Olympic bids, involved in World Cup soccer, and gives his brilliant input to the FIA Endurance Racing Commission. Dr. Lynn Lashbrook is the president of Sports Management Worldwide. Lynn has been working and teaching in sports management for over 40 years. I believe you started when you were 6. You're known for helping provide guidance to students, helping them strategize for their careers. Sports Management Worldwide is a fascinating organization. It's the first online sports management school with the mission to prepare the next generation of leadership in sports management. Dan Rossetti is the managing partner of Ascension Sports Partners. Dan is an expert at recruiting the best and brightest and helping them connect with the right partner in the business. He founded Ascension Sports Partners with the belief that a candidate doesn't need a seat in the boardroom to receive executive-level treatment. His clients have included ISC, IndyCar, Circuit of the Americas, Richard Childress Racing, and the professional bull riders. And that is no bull. And that's just a few of the many clients. John Warniak on the end here closest to me, Vice President of Vehicle Technology at SEMA. In addition to giving me my best nickname that I've ever had, the Dr. Demento of motorsports, John has utilized his engineering expertise and management savvy on projects as diverse as stealth bombers and soapbox derby cars. He currently applies that expertise to help automotive aftermarket companies understand the vehicle technology challenges that are ahead, develop solutions, and capitalize on new business opportunities presented by complex systems and new technologies. Also, through his work with the #1 rated team in NCAA football, Clemson, he's helping develop the new minds, the bright minds for the future of automotive design. All right, gang, and I'm going to throw this one out. And Andrew, we're going to go to you first. And then, yeah, it's going to be a tough act to follow after that. The question that everybody asks when it comes to motorsports careers is very simple. Is what you know more important or who you know?
I think, well, first of all, good morning. It's great to be here. I think in this day and age, it's what you know. Obviously, who you know helps, gets you in the door perhaps, but it's what you know. This is a serious professional business at every level and in every function, whether it be technical or marketing or business or whatever. This is a business which is increasingly run by professionals, and that will continue, and that will grow. So clearly and unequivocally, it starts with what you know.
Okay, first of all, thanks, Tim and all of you. I'm very impressed. I've been here many years ago, and we do conferences all over the world. It's a privilege to be here, and I thought the panel before was excellent. And whether we talk concussion protocol or talk about safety, it's fascinating. The what you know and who you know, I started an online company because I think, as Andrew said, the what you know is so important now. The paradigm, the old boy network, that was great. And we had that for hundreds of years, centuries. And now, if you don't bring a what you know, kids every day in Portland want to work at Nike. I said, what are you going to do when you get there? They all want to work somewhere, but they don't know what to do. What you bring is really my answer to the what you know and who you know. What you bring, and the connectivity worldwide is important. But there's a lot of talent out there that hasn't been discovered as you deal with your issues. And I think that's where we as an educational platform take a lot of pride in. So the what you know, who you know is a paradigm shift that you better have a what you know to go with the who you know.
You mind if I jump in real quick? What I would tell you is, to kind of complement what they said, who you know is still going to get you your first chance. I mean, it's still going to get you your first opportunity. It's going to get you an interview. It's going to get you a conversation. It's going to get you networking. The what you know will separate you out from whether you stay in this industry for a long time or if you're just another fly by the seat of their pants candidate that we come across that has dreams and aspirations of whether being a general manager or running a race team or being the president of a track. It comes very quickly that if they don't know the information and they don't know what's going on in the business, they're gonna fail and they're gonna just kind of flutter away. We see too many of those people. A survey we did about 5 years ago, but I think the numbers are still relatively the same. I mean, this is professional sports and entertainment because my scope covers not only motorsports but all the rest of the sports and entertainment industry. Is that hiring clients, hiring teams, hiring companies. 65% of their hires come from who they know. That's 65%. And that's people that are, just network friends of networks, and people that they know. So, we can get into a little bit more. I think there was another topic later on, but what you do with that opportunity and how you represent yourself kind of goes back to who you know. And if who you know and you don't represent yourself well, they're not going to push you any further to any opportunities that come across their desk. So.
John.
Great to be here. Thank you, Dr. D, and thank you, Tim and Margot, for being here. I think you need both. What you know and who you know are both equally important. The who you know gets you in the door, but I think Roger Penske and Neil Young told me never name drop. So, but if that gets you through the door and you bring the what, the content, that's your brand. That's what you're bringing to the equation. That's your value and how you differentiate in that. But equally important, who you know and what you know, they both have to be relevant. If it's not relevant to the job at hand, in this case a motorsports career, it doesn't count. You can get that anywhere. We already know how to go fast. What are you bringing that differentiates yourself from that career perspective, and what are you going to do to make racing not only just fast, we know how to do that, but how you make it sustainable. The safety and the systems engineering, things like that we'll be talking about.
Okay, getting to do my best game show impersonation again. We throw a toss-up question to the panel. What are the best methods of networking other than, of course, Racetrack Business Conference? That's number one.
Well, I'm going to start because I put on conference all over the world, and Tim's done a great job here. I make people, before we start our conference, we're down in Nashville for the MLB meetings, and I'm tired of young people come out. The person in Starbucks may be your next boss. I just believe networking is saying hi to somebody and where you're from and what you do. And with my pre-Alzheimer's, I can't remember names, but I want to know where you're from and what you do, and I can learn from you. And we can learn from everybody in this room. And too often we stay in our silos of comfortability. Kids will come on a bus to the deal, and they all hang out together. And so the networking part, as I talked about who you know, is very important. And you can't get any more who you knows if you don't turn around and ask somebody who they are. And so that's one of the things I say that comes naturally is get to know the people that you don't know.
I'm Dan Rossetti with Ascension Sports Partners. Just for your also.
You're from Cincinnati. I don't care about your name. Right?
Dan, can I give you my card?
Yeah. Just put it right on my forehead. To Lynn's point, I mean, I do, and I go and I speak to a lot of college campuses. I go and talk to a lot of breaking into sports discussions where you have 400, 500 students that want to work in the industry, and even events like this. The companies that you come with, it's amazing. I was taught in my first company, I was taught the grenade effect rule when you go to a conference like this is to where if the boss came in and dropped a grenade, it shouldn't kill more than one person from that company at the same time, because everybody should be going out and meeting everybody that you're there, because not only are you getting to know people in the industry, you never know when that person ends up getting a role that they'll remember you and want to hire you later on down the road, or just ask if you know anybody, and that's how the cycle works. I can't tell people, if you're not good at networking, you got to learn how to do it. You got to figure out how to become good at networking. And also, it's not just networking with people in our industry. It's networking with just people that you meet, and whether it's a chamber of commerce, whether it's other conferences, whether it's just business at Panera and you bump into somebody and you start a conversation. You never know who that individual may know that could help you with your career, help you with your business. It doesn't just have to be sport specific, but going to other events, going to, conferences when you're at the track, who are you networking with, who are you talking to, or are you just kind of, I think, to a lesser degree of the conversation earlier about proactive versus reactive. Are you being proactive about going out there? And I mean, again, it's representing and building your brand. I mean, that's what it's all about, is how do you want to be seen when someone asks Dan Rossetti, Ascension Sports Partners, how are you being seen? And that just is how you interact with others wherever wherever it might be.
Yeah, I'm a consultant. I work for myself on my own. And typically, my contracts last for 12, 14 months, sometimes 6 months. Right now, I got a gig for 2 years, which is incredible for me. But the reason I make that point is because I'm constantly looking for new business. And the only way to get new business doesn't come to you. You've got to go and get it. And conferences are, for me, incredibly important. Events like this are important. My business is very international, so an event like Sport Accord, held every year, where every single international federation in the world is there in one place. You've got to attend these events. You've got to get out. You've got to constantly meet people. And as my colleagues on the panel have said, you're only going to get business if you engage with people. If you don't engage, you won't have any business.
All right, Lynn, I'm going to throw this question direct at you. What can auto racing professionals learn from their stick and ball countersports when it comes to career development?
It's a good question. Growing up in stick and balls in Kansas, my credentials for being in racing, though, I've had a driver's license longer than most of you, and I started driving a tractor at 5. So those are my credentials. But let me come through. I love that question. I just think, first of all, sticks and balls for years looked at motorsports. Maybe it's not sports just because it's a motor versus we all know that that's no longer the question. I think, and I came back from MLB, is worried about the safety nets and the foul ball. It has nothing to do with this. Concussions, which we don't really talk about here, but the new movie coming out and what the NFL is going through, the safety issue. And I think when you talk about best practice, I don't think it's just a vertical of best practice in your industry. I'm fascinated as I go to, we've been up to the hockey conference, and we're here, we do MMA, we go everywhere, and there's similar conversations, as Andrew would know, and I think cross best practices is really, you got to get out of your silo and see what other people are doing. The empty seat is the most expensive seat. There's nobody here that wouldn't like to increase their audience or their business model, and that's in all sports. There's so many similarities, it's a little scary sometimes.
I don't think it's stick and ball, Dennis. I think it's, no disrespect, but it's not a sport if you don't put gas in it. But I really do think action sports is probably where the relevant learning is coming from. Certainly stick and ball, again, no disrespect there. All the aspects of sport.
Going away, right?
Yeah, it's not just going fast turning left. There are some right-hand turns, right? We're Scott. We certainly got Formula E and others, but I think it's the relevancy, and I think Global Rally Course. Is Laura Cooper here from GRC? I mean, there's a great example of learning from action sports, putting superstars into the vehicles that are superstars not just from a racing and driver perspective, just like in other sports, but it's also the superstars from a connecting with the brands and the fans and those STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and adding art and design to that. Those are the careers. So if you can connect with that next generation of brands and fans, that's what I think we can learn from all sports.
And our GRC folks are even letting their drivers be personalities and not trying to muzzle them. So I think we could all learn from that.
You mind if I chime in? Because again, as I deal across the spectrum of sports, one of the things that I've seen the difference when I recruit for a stick and ball sport versus a motorsports client is that the stick and ball sports have started to evolve in really building their brand of how they want to be seen to potential candidates. The days of where there was an infinite pool of candidates and anybody could come in and, you know what, I've got a line of 1,000 people that want to come work for Richard Childress Racing or Daytona Speedway or the, IndyCar, whatever it might be. You may have 1,000 people, but maybe 10 to 15 are really qualified. So what are you doing as a organization to brand yourself out there to where these students, they've got other options now. The top minds that are graduating from college that are, moving around in the industries, they've got other options, and they don't have to work in sports. I mean, it's not the allure. Unfortunately, it keeps me busy, but it's not the allure that once was there because, the money's not always as good. You work a whole lot more hours. You have to be comfortable with dealing with people. It's a hospitality business. So, of developing, you've got organizations like the Pacers, here in town that, they have a structured internship training program that gives, top minds the opportunity to kind of circle around the whole industry, the whole organization and figure out where they're best suited. It's not, hey, you have to be in sales. That's the path you go. No, let's really try and identify that. But they're using technology. They're using different ways to build their brand to where students, when they graduate, or people as they're out there in the industry, we all talk. We all know one another. You know the companies you want to work for. You know the companies you don't want to work for. And your network knows those too. And you have those conversations. So what are you doing to proactively build that brand out there? Sharing best practices was good. I think, one of the things as well, and we may touch on it, but, and it's a sensitive topic, but is diversity. Look around the room. I'm not going to say, look around the room. I see a lot of similar people, and we need to build diversity within motorsports, and the other organizations out there in sports entertainment are starting to get there. It's not always has to be somebody from motorsports. It can be somebody who's looking to come in, who's just got great ideas that can then bring and share. I think someone mentioned share those ideas within motorsports as well.
And people want to work for cool companies, and a lot of race companies are cool companies. And I think with the advent of the driverless series that's coming out next year, you're going to see Apple and Google racing driverless cars. That's it's going to change the sport, but it's also a very cool opportunity, again, for sustainability of motorsports.
Okay, Andrew, I'm going to throw this question out, next question out to you. But before I do that, I'm going to steal the mic in the middle, and you guys here need to cooperate.
I feel like Ronald Reagan at that New Hampshire primary.
Yeah, I know. I'll pay for this mic, yeah. So if you have a question in the audience, please raise your hand so I can get an idea of how many questions we do have, because I think we're going to have quite a few here for this topic. And again, when I come to you with the mic to ask a question, please state who you're from, or who you are and where you're from. But Andrew, what skills are in demand and what skills need to be developed? And then please discuss this. Everybody chime in.
Well, I think from my perspective, which is more on the management and business side, I think there is a very clear need for better marketing people in motorsport. In my view, it's still not treated as seriously as perhaps in the major leagues and others. I see some real gaps in that area. Public relations is pretty good. Actually, there's a lot of good PR people in motorsport, but marketing people, frankly, it's not sometimes the best marketing opportunity for career opportunity to work in marketing inside a racetrack. There are many talented people in marketing out in agencies. Actually, just to name one person right now, you may know the name Zach Brown. Zach has gone from a very small company to phenomenal success, because he's a superb marketeer. He's now living in London, executive chairman of CSM Group. So he's taken just marketing, sold it very successfully. So he's a marketing superstar, frankly, in our industry. But there are not too many Zach Browns, which is probably why he's done so well.
Let me just add to that. Worldwide, we have students from 140 different countries. In the sport business, whether it's MMA or cricket or rugby or baseball, football, basketball, or motorsports, Tom Weisenbach's our instructor. He's in the industry, but there's so many talented people that would be valuable in your industry if they had the chance to be reintroduced. And that's where online reaches out. I always say go global or go home, and Andrew knows this better than anybody, but your sport and your product has to have a global image to it, because there's so much out there. It's a big economy. The world is changing dramatically. I think that access to college degrees and debt is a little frightening in the irrelevance of what the skill sets we're looking for. And that's why we go out and get industry leaders. I don't think as a professor of 45 years that I can remain relevant in the classroom. And so I travel around the world, and I started my own business. My point is there are so many talented people given the opportunity would blow you away with what they could do and add new ideas and innovation to what you're trying to do to grow any one of your products in your industry?
Since the majority of my roles that I work on throughout the industry are kind of business side of the industry, not necessarily on the technical or competition side, the answer is going to skew towards that, which is revenue. If you can drive revenue, you're always going to have a position and you're always going to have a spot wherever it is. We talked in the first panel, they talked about how expensive the safety equipment is. Well, you know what? You need good people who can sell, and you need good people who can drive revenue so that you can then afford those things. And I think that too many organizations short shrift their salespeople. And on top of revenue, I guess you could base that on relationships. You could kind of cite them symbiotically to where the great relationship people in the industry typically can make a long-lasting career as a great revenue driver as well. And when you drive revenue, it opens up all of the different aspects of your business that you want to spend money in. But it's taking the time and finding those people because they don't. Everybody knows they don't fall off the trees. Great revenue producers are very, very, very rare, and when they become open, they're not cheap either. But the difference between paying somebody $300,000 that's bringing in $2 million is worth it. I see too many organizations that go cheap on their salespeople because they just feel like they have to save money. Well, if you want to give your salespeople an incentive to want to sell more. You want to pay them more because you know what? That means that they're bringing more into the organization. So I would say revenue drivers, along with marketing and just bringing in other minds into the industry is what's going to continue helping it grow.
Yeah, I'm biased, I think, from an engineering technology perspective. Systems engineering, I think, is certainly there. But there's some non-endemic things, I think, that just aren't endemic to the sport. Lynn St. James is back there with Project Podium. We need more diversity in the sport, and I think not just from driver perspective. We had, the first football woman coach, I think, right now this year? Lynn?
Was this summer, right?
Yeah, so fantastic. I think crew chiefs, engineers, lots of different programs. Dr. D mentioned the Clemson University graduate program for PhD in motorsports. 1/3 of those students are women from around the world. That's pretty cool. So we're not going to see it in the next generation for sure, but I think that diversity in those skill sets, because that brings a different perspective to the entire race team. Certainly from marketing, Andrew, and certainly from technology and STEAM. Yep.
Yeah, just to stay with that point for 1 minute. The FIA has now formed a Women in Motorsport Commission, which I think is a start, but it's only a start. Certainly as an industry, we will be a better industry if we are far more diverse than we are today. There's absolutely no question about that. And I think that's something which is not only the right thing to do, it's a sensible thing to do. It's just plain well good for business.
Real quickly, in the NFL came up with a Rooney Rule for general managers and coaches. Now there's never a discussion anymore. They've come so far, and I'm watching MLB's trying those mechanisms. I look at women in sports. We need more women athletic directors. We need more women, not just in the car. But you're so absolutely right. My wife's a partner in my company. Tim's wife's a partner in his company. Women bring a different perspective, trust me, and it makes us a better organization. And men for years have dominated the sports industry, and we don't have all the answers. And I know that's hard for me. Okay, I'll let you interrupt me.
Yeah, I'm going to leave the panel and ask Lynn to come up here.
Okay. Okay. Anyhow, good stuff.
My friend Michelle Krebs, one of the leading women automotive journalists, says, "Don't call me a woman automotive journalist. Just call me the best journalist." Yeah, so,
Good morning. I'm Jennifer from Motorsport Reg, and we work with a lot of amateur road racers. So they're at their local SEC region, NASA, and they're not trying to be the next NASCAR driver, but they want to move up to like MX-5 Cup car or the next level. And a lot of these guys and girls are in their 30s, 40s, 50s. How important do you think for this kind of racer is it to have good social media presence, number of Twitter followers, how many fans they have on Facebook, LinkedIn connections, because it's a little harder for some of the people in that age range. So how important do you think that is when they're trying to move up the ranks?
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, it's a great point you brought up. I mean, and it goes back to not only employees or candidates that want to brand themselves or how they want to be branded. It's just as crucial for the athletes, the talent, to understand that's how they get noticed. I mean, fair or unfair nowadays, it's how many how many likes do you have on your tweet? How many people retweeted it? How many followers do you have? Because that in turn then opens up brands' eyes and other people's eyes to say, okay, I've got to at least take a look. Now, whether they ultimately make that next step, it's the same way as if I was looking at a resume. If I've got enough people that are referring somebody, I'm going to at least take a look. I'm going to have to at least open my eyes up. The same thing with social media, LinkedIn. I mean, and the more that they can just, and it goes back to just general business skills. I mean, athletes, and, Lynn deals with a lot of the athletes as well, how crucial it is that they just understand social media presence, that you don't want to hit that send button sometimes when you post a tweet. I mean, looking at those things, because that is what I see you as. I mean, again, fair or unfair, that's what I see you as a person. So, it is, I would say it's extremely important.
Let me add something real quick. We have 70-year-old students in our class. We had a 60-year-old took our baseball class, became an associate scout for the California Angels. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but that was in his epitaph or in his eulogy that, he got to be a California Angels. It's never too late to start. With the new world, the Uber world that we live in, the access, people can change careers. And the talented person that's 40 years old that worked for Verizon can sell like nobody. That person gave an opportunity where you have an empty seats or whatever. I just think the cross-pollination of career opportunities, second careers, social media. Yeah, my kids teach me how to use my phone, but I'm pretty good at it now. I just think we're in a revolution of opportunity like never before.
Take a look at Jeff Gordon. He was the first, in this case NASCAR driver, to have that social media presence with jeffgordon.com over 25 years ago.
It's a great question because, for me anyway, because I'm a director of a company called Hookit.com, and we're providing exactly what you described. We measure social media performance both for individual athletes but also for brands. So when a brand now commits to a young athlete, say someone in action sports, they're not going to get much TV. They're not going to get much presence on the news, if any at all. But what they will get, if they drive it for themselves, they will build up substantial following on social media. So we're measuring virtually all of the social media platforms out there. We provide a real-time service to brands where brands can look at their athletes on a Monday morning and see who's working, who's not, who's trying, who's watching TV. And it's very effective, very, very effective indeed. Plus, the brands can directly reward athletes with deals on equipment and so forth if they're performing well.
Well, I mean, and it just goes to his point. I mean, you see some of the YouTube superstars. I mean, you take a look at an organization like, or a person like Brian Deegan. For any of the rallycross folks. I mean, in the kind of the X Games extreme sports guys, the Metal Militia. I mean, they build a lot of that groundswell through social media. So, I mean, it's another way to get things going. So it's a great point.
Actually, just one final thing. I think it levels the playing field as well. It gives everybody a real opportunity to build a fan base. That's very, very important.
In an industry composed of, as was identified earlier, a large number of small kingdoms, what advice would you give us for succession planning where we don't have a son or a daughter to take over, but we're truly looking for an executive person to run a business in a small kingdom in our world?
I'm just one thing I love your question. I'm small business too, and I just think that what we don't realize, and this is where the internet and online education, I used to say it's a cell phone versus a pay phone. Find me a pay phone, I give you $1. Find somebody using it, I give you $5. And that was just 20 years ago. Well, my buddy, when I went back to the Kansas City Royals game with my childhood buddy, he said, I don't think kids know what a pay phone is. And so I've gone from Uber to taxi. That's the revolution going on in our town today. But I think, again, on the internet and through all the networking going on, there's somebody out there that's a matchmaker for what you're looking for. And I think we get stuck in our silo. We come here only. There's people outside the industry who would be very valuable in the industry. And I think it goes back to LinkedIn and all the other things. There's cross-pollination that we all have to think about.
And I think as well that if you are a small kingdom, you have to really spend the time and effort to identify what makes you successful. And then if you, I mean, because I talk to too many companies and clients that they don't even know exactly what they want internally, because they don't even know what makes up their own team, what makes a successful person on their team, what makes someone who's failed at their organization. So, it's kind of an introspective of, okay, I don't have anybody here, but what are the qualities that is going to make somebody take over my brand and my company? What are those qualities, and can I go find that? And, can I find that from somebody new, or do I have it here and I just need to develop them? I mean, that's a whole other conversation, is, developing the talent that you already have in place, that they then can step up, because, the transition of, lost knowledge is there's not a price that you can put on that. So.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Brantley. I want to say hello to all the women in the world. I'm here with my husband, Robert Brantley, and I. We have a business, Body Parts Fitness, and I'm interested in this area of motorsports careers. I recently completed in 2013 my dissertation, which focused on women in motorsports, and I wanted to look at the willingness and the perception to compete side by side with the male counterpart. And I'm wondering what's my next path, considering that I could go into the academic field and continue my research. There are a lot more interests in this area, and I was hoping you could share some insight with respects to staying in academia, or, if you will, looking at what is available for me in the motorsports industry, seeing how I do bring diversity.
So I've been in 45.
Keeping in mind that it ends up in a job, and I can retire.
Nothing's changed. We still have an attitude, don't we? Honey, please. That's what I'm telling my wife every day. Thank you for your inspiration. Real quickly, I'm in higher education. My wife gets tired of it. I'm very critical of higher education. Every day I read about debt, and it just gets higher and higher. There's a lot of turmoil on campus. I don't think a doctorate in kinesiology makes me an expert in motorsport. So we go out and get industry leaders. You're in academics. I had my PhD or my EDD at 23. The world's changing. There's no longer that tenure path that used to be there. And I would love to sit down and talk to you too. There's a world of education. Online is the most exciting venture I've ever been involved with. I mean, literally, we're growing month to month. That we started 16 years ago at the Holiday Inn at Indianapolis at the NFL Combine, and now we do conferences all over the world. Just because I believe that the opportunity for education and learning is not about access to college; it's access to learning. And I think that's the paradigm shift going on. I'll be glad to visit with you about that. But the opportunity, the lower the barrier for opportunity, the diversity issue is solved. We all have access. We need more women up on these panels, just like I do at my conference. I didn't have any women. And it hurts, because when you have a woman up on the panel, we get all women asking questions. So I get the comfortability. My name's Lynn. That helps. I'm halfway there. But I'm not going to do the change or any of those other things that are popular. But I think you're on the right track.
I think you need the book smarts, obviously, that you've got that in a PhD dissertation, but you need the track side or the street smarts as well to go with that. If you come into an environment like a race team, very well knit, particularly a winning team, you need to be able to integrate that with something authentic, not just out of a book. It literally has to, what's that bridge, what's that connection? And I would say it's connecting the dots that weren't connected before, or the dots that weren't aware of on the team, but bringing that differentiation to a team like that. Or it could be the business of the team, could be the team owner, could be the crew chief, could be the driver. But connecting that book smarts and the track smarts together is what I think the careers are all about today, if you want to be in racing.
Thank you guys for being on this career panel. This is something that I think our industry sorely needs. And it's undefined. When we talk about learning or moving up the corporate ladder within our industry, most of the emphasis is really what John mentioned, is really on the engineering and technology side, obviously on the STEM. But if we go over to what most of us in this room are doing, is we're working on the business side of the industry. Other professional careers have development. If you're a lawyer, whether you're an accountant or other companies, they have professional development. There is continuing CPE that they have to go through and do. Most of the time in what we're doing, as we said, this is a passion-based industry. We love what we do. Finding a person that's unhappy in this industry, it usually doesn't exist, or else they're completely out of money, and it's the end of the season, and they don't have sponsorship. But for those that were working on the business side of it, I think this is something that we need to improve on. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but we talk about bringing up a lot of talent. You know, we know we're having another session here later on driver development. It's defined on where you're going to go, what series, what type of racing. But for people that want to work in business, and if you get with a larger company, whether it be a manufacturer that's on the trade show floor there, or you work with a track operator, they will have internal training. They've got the resources to be able to do it. But for many of us that we hear, we're small businesses. We're trying to make it work in this business because we love it economically. Hopefully it's working for us. You're willing to kind of do a trade-off. And so I really thank you guys for being here. I really think that for us as an industry to reach out and study other stick and ball sports, we've got something to learn from it. So I'm really open to see what we can do to follow up with this panel. It's really kind of open-ended. We put this up here, and we've got a lot of resources. But ideally, I think really what would be nice is, you know, we come up with a curriculum that can be part of a show like this at the PRI show or the SEMA show, and you said, hey, you know what? You come to this thing, you work at our track, and guess what? Here you could do a session on X, Y, and Z. Just it could be a half-hour session. It's really hard to go through and do. But again, the whole thing is we want to better ourselves personally and professionally, and we also want to grow that talent that's in here. So anyways, that's just what it is out there. I'm open for this. I'd really like to see where we can go with this topic. We've got some great experts here. We've got great experts in the room. So let's see what we can do, and I think the idea is that we come up with something and we present this to the upper echelons, whether it be the PRI show or the SEMA show, or again, you know, to FIA or to ACUS or some of the sanctioning bodies, and there might be something there. And I think what it is we come and we develop things that are somewhat sports-specific, and then we kind of change the nature of it, because career development, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just that we're working in an industry that we all love as far as motorsports goes.
And I do encourage you all to reach out to these gentlemen up here on the stage. You have their email information now, and please interact with them if you have questions that we didn't get to today. So with that, we're going to start off with John with closing statements.
You only got 5 minutes.
Come on, spit it out.
I think going back to you truly have to connect the dots, and if you don't have enough dots to connect, you don't have anything to offer the racing industry, because it takes that non-endemic, that diversity, that sustainability perspective to bring that to racing. As I said earlier, the industry knows how to go fast. To build on Tim's comments about the content of racing, the technology is really what is there. That's becoming cool again, to make things, the whole maker movement, particularly in the U.S., it's becoming cool to make things, and technology is becoming cool again where it hasn't been. A lot of different athletes, not motorsports athletes, have not been the role models throughout the industry. You go to India or China, an engineer is a super engineer. Their careers are very well respected. Not so in the U.S. I think that's changing with the next generation that's coming. But the ability to connect those dots and to realize the content of racing, which is out on the show floor, some of the technology, but this is really probably a room full of context of racing, what goes on in the business of racing. You need both, but I think arguably one of my mentors is here, Herb Fischel, in the audience, and he said, when I first came from Hughes Aircraft to GM, he said, I want you to be in racing for 3 years, but I want you to get inoculated, not to die from the disease. So I think that's the best advice I can give there is don't die from the disease, but get involved in motorsports and racing, because it can be a career that takes you to lots of different places.
Dan.
I would say a couple things. First, as an organization, as you look at your hires and you're looking at is what's the value that you place on a new hire? And everybody that's different. But, for the small organizations, Tim, that you mentioned, a lot of them that are, here and a lot of the smaller companies, it's a colossal setback if you make the wrong hire. It's just as crucial that you make sure that you spend the time to really identify what that scope of that person, and not only technically, but also culturally, is for your organization. From a candidate side, one thing that I know a lot of the, in my opinion, a lot of the motorsports professionals that I speak with don't do as good of a job is thinking about their own career, thinking about what their path is, and not spending time, focusing in on themselves as well of what's the situation that's going to make me, happy, but not, also very successful out there. So.
I grew up in Kansas City. I'm proud of my Royals, but the old Kansas City A's, and I caught 13 foul balls in 2 summers. It was a true story. And my philosophy, and every time I caught a foul ball, I had a ticket in my pocket. And I created a company that basically says, we'll provide tickets to the game. We'll never guarantee foul balls. There's no guarantees out there. I also grew up hating the game of soccer. I thought it was a communist plot. And I'm season ticket holders with the Portland Timbers. I love soccer. My wife reminds me she loves going to the game 90 minutes and you're done. But my point is, it's globalization. We offer cricket, rugby. I've been to all those venues. And as Andrew will tell you, the cross-pollination, there's a sports revolution going on. Sponsors want live content. Guess what? Sports is live content. We have no idea where this economy of sports is going. It's a $1 trillion industry in a world that's a mess right now. Sports is a substitute for war. What you're doing in here, you can grow horizontally and vertically. So I say to everybody every day, go global or go home. And thank you for listening.
Andrew.
Thank you. And just on that point, we live in a world where people will tell you that television's in decline. It's actually not. It's growing. More people watching television than ever before. But what they're doing is watching across more and more platforms. That will increase. Audiences will get smaller. But on the other hand, the people who are watching are there because they want to be there. But it's a real challenge for us, I think, as an industry, to ensure that we continue to maintain this premier position for live sport, to your point. Live sport is going to be everything. Live sport and news are going to be the central pillars of TV going forward. I'd just like to finish with one suggestion or comment. It's very important, so you might like to, if you've got a pen and paper, be ready to take some notes. But and I mean this, if you have to sing karaoke, choose something by The Clash.
I always choose Neil Young because, I'm off key anyway, but that's a whole nother story. What did we learn today from our Motorsport Careers panel? One thing we learned is that we need to keep learning. Improve your skills. I don't care how great you are at something, you can get better. One common theme that we heard up here on the stage, though, is great communication skills. If you can't talk and promote and sell yourself, nobody else is going to do it for you. So learn what the new skills are that you need and get the training you need from the professionals who can teach you the right way. But more than anything else, learn how to communicate effectively in this business. And I treat every tweet that I send out as if it's the most important memo that I'm sending to the world. And if you have that attitude, I think you'll go far. And I'm actually starting to learn how to use Instagram too, so I'm getting dangerous. Number 2, get out of your silos at conferences, and you'll have a great chance to put that to practice during the morning break, which is coming up in a few minutes. And I love the hand grenade rule. That's a new one that I'd never heard of before. And number 1, I asked the question at the beginning of this segment, is it who or what you know that's most important? And the answer that I expected is the answer that I got. Both are equally important. Who you know might get you that interview, might get you in the door even, but it's what you know and how you apply those skills that'll keep you in this business for a very, very long time. So with that, as we head to morning break, I'd first like to have you give a big round of applause for our Motorsports Careers panel.